Formula One has had its fair share of sporting scandals in recent years, from spying to gamesmanship and lying to the race stewards, but the allegations that Renault fixed the result of last year's Singapore Grand Prix are perhaps the most serious of all. This is the backstory. Fernando Alonso had a fast car in Singapore, but was only 16th on the grid after an engine problem in qualifying. Renault gambled on a light fuel load, just 12 laps worth for Alonso, hoping to benefit from a safety car or a big crash on the opening laps. When teammate Nelson Piquet crashed, the safety car came out. It was the perfect time for Fernando because he'd just refueled. Everyone else then made their stops. Fernando Alonso inherited the lead and went on to win. He even acknowledged how lucky he'd been with a safety car in front of team boss Flavio Briatore before going out onto the podium. Fast forward 10 months, and after this year's Hungarian Grand Prix, Renault sacked Nelson Piquet. 4 days after being dismissed, Piquet told the FIA's chief steward that he crashed deliberately in Singapore in order to bring out the safety car. He says he was asked to crash on purpose by engineering chief Pat Simmons and Flavio Briatore. Simmons and Briatore deny this allegation. Piquet says he did it to improve his chances of keeping his Renault drive. Fernando Alonso says he knew nothing about the plan. If you found out that you'd won a race because it was manufactured by a team, would you be happy with that?
As the team said, we will not comment anything until everything is finished, so we'll see after.
The FIA World Council will meet on Monday week to consider the evidence and come to a judgment. Piquet's sworn statement, a key part of the prosecution case, was leaked to the media this weekend. That angered Renault, who were waiting until the World Council to make their defence, and has led the company to commence legal proceedings against Piquet for making false allegations and attempting to blackmail the team.
We want to defend ourselves in the World Council, and we don't want to talk anything regarding the accident of the Piquet in Singapore. What is possible to tell you is Renault and myself, we put a criminal plans to the two Piquet in the High Court of Paris for blackmail.
There are likely to be no winners in this case. If the FIA find Renault did nothing wrong, Nelson Piquet will struggle to find employment in F1 in the future and will be subject to serious legal proceedings. If the Renault team is found guilty, punishments range from big fines to race bans for the team or specific personnel, or even exclusion from the whole championship. We'll find out the result on Monday week, just 6 days before this year's Singapore Grand Prix.
Max, perhaps you could start by explaining to us how the allegations concerning Renault first came to the FIA's attention.
Well, I was told by Nelson Piquet Sr., and then I just said, well, if there's anything in that, Nelson Jr. shouldn't simply make a statement. So he made a statement, and then we've looked at all the surrounding circumstances and also questioned some people. And we've sent the entire dossier to the Renault team, and we're now waiting for them to answer, because the one thing you know for sure is there are two sides to every story, and as far as we're concerned, they have to be considered innocent, unless until they're proved guilty.
Can you conceive of a team though asking a driver to crash solely to gain a win?
Well, it depends what else is at stake, and one never knows of these things, but sometimes it can be almost life and death to them, or survival. I mean, it obviously not necessarily telling a driver to crash, but to have a win could be enormously important.
So you said the FIA did some investigations to get the full picture. What did you do to work out precisely how the land lies?
Well, the first thing we did was obviously question Nelson Jr. in detail at length, and we had lawyers there and also people from Quest, which is an investigation agency. We then looked at the onboard telemetry of the car, which records everything that the driver does, steering input, throttle and everything. So we looked at that. We then asked Renault for copies of the radio traffic, which they supplied us with. And then at the last Grand Prix at Spa, we interviewed a number of members of the Renault team. And then that was the dossier.
We've heard very little from Renault. What can you tell us of their stance at the moment? What's their position here?
They haven't taken one yet, because they've got until, I think, the middle of next week to produce their dossier. And when they do, obviously we'll look at it. But so far we've had no official response from them. And that's as it should be. They need time to put their case together.
So with the information you've gleaned from the PK side, and with nothing forthcoming from Renault, the only course of action open to the FIA was to take this to a hearing? You think there is a case to answer?
Well, there's quite clearly a case to answer, and if put round the other way, if having received that information, we'd said, well, that doesn't really matter, we're not going to do anything, that would have, I think, been enormously damaging to Formula One.
So once again, Formula One.
Last year's Singapore Grand Prix was fixed. Nelson Piquet pre-planned his own accident so as to bring out the safety car, help his teammate Fernando Alonso get to the front and win the race. This wasn't spying on other teams or lying to the stewards. This was Piquet crashing deliberately, endangering his own safety for the benefit of his team and his teammate.
Will you be telling me you knew nothing about this?
After he was sacked earlier this year, Nelson Piquet turned informer on his old team. In front of the FIA, Renault admitted that they fixed the race, but insisted that the brains behind the plan were Piquet himself, team boss Flavio Briatore, and engineering boss Pat Simmons. Simmons and Briatore paid for the conspiracy with their jobs, but Renault stay in F1.
The penalty for Renault is disqualification, but suspended for 2 years. So what that comes down to is, provided they don't do something similar within 2 years, they don't have any problem.
But this weekend, Renault have been hit in the pocket by the immediate withdrawal of title sponsor ING. The financial services company did not want to be associated with a team that cheats. The team's been embroiled in a race-fixing scandal. Your major title sponsor has walked out on you in the middle of the season. How's your first week as team boss going?
It can't get worse, can it? I can only look good in a situation like this, whatever I do, so we'll deal with it.
By being granted immunity, the man who actually caused the accident is free to race again in F1 if he can find anyone who wants to employ him. Pat Simmons admitted that he arranged the plan with Piquet and has been banned from any FIA-sanctioned motorsport for 5 years. But after an anonymous whistleblower within the Renault team confirmed that Flavio Briatore knew about the plan, the FIA banned the Italian for life. Flavio's vowed to clear his name, but his downfall has been dramatic. The flamboyant, charismatic showman whose world has collapsed.
What does it mean for the future of Formula One?
I don't think it means anything.
The FIA believe they've drawn a line under the whole affair. Whoever else has bent the rules in Formula One, this will be remembered as one of the worst cases of cheating in sporting history. Has F1 learned its lesson, or are the stakes so high that someone will always look to take the easy way to victory?